Dating apps are a network of people who don't have anyone in their life that can connect them to anyone they know, so they are desperate and alone and afraid. And then they have attachment issues. Then they go on the app and they try to market themselves like a product on Amazon for impulse buys. So they misuse the app and they're already afraid and desperate in the first place. So it's a hunting ground for people with attachment issues or personality disorders to find somebody to give them the chemicals they're looking for.
Adam Lane Smith, you are a relationship coach.
I am the attachment specialist.
So attachment styles is your kind of specialty?
Attachment science is everything I do.
And you are licensed?
I was licensed as a marriage and family therapist for years. I gave up my license specifically so that I could coach.
Is that right?
Yeah, I had to, unfortunately.
And tell us about attachment styles. I think this is one of the most interesting parts of romantic relationships, and it's not really delved into that much.
No, it's not, unfortunately. Attachment theory was developed back in the 1950s by John Bowlby. Attachment theory really is just the way that we as humans connect to each other to give and receive love. It's to get our needs met. It's to feel safe. It's everything that we do between us. And we can either have secure attachment, where we learn that people will work with us. They will take care of our needs. They will share with us. They'll be honest with us, and there are second chances. Or we learn that people will not do that. We learn that we are not safe, and so we have to fight for safety. Either we have to pull back and stay away from other people and solve everything alone ourselves. That's avoidant attachment. Or we learn that we are not good enough. There's something wrong with us deep down on the inside that no one could ever love. And we go looking for validation, looking for safety. That's anxious attachment. And we have a blend of the two, unfortunately, disorganized attachment style, which is excessive trauma. It pushes you into both anxious and avoidant based on whatever situation you're in. You're highly adaptable.
And typically an avoidant person will attract an anxious person.
Like magnets. Yeah, it's hard to keep them apart is really what it is.
Yeah, that's what creates these unexplainable attractions.
There's no wall high enough to keep an avoidant person and an anxious person apart. The avoidant person loves the free love and energy and connection from the anxious person, and just this unfiltered adoration. It's an endless dopamine fest for about 5 to 7 months, and they luxuriate in it. They love that there's no demands. They love that there's no price tags on anything, because the anxious person is too afraid to demand a price tag for anything. And the anxious person loves that the avoidant person can just give so much validation, so much attention, so much connection. They can just binge that dopamine, which for the anxious person is oxytocin and dopamine. So they feel safety, they feel addicted. It's a biochemical addiction, very similar to gambling addiction, actually, in the brain. And it's this endless drug fest until about 5 to 7 months, when the novelty dopamine wears off and the avoidant person craters, their pleasure goes away, and they stop finding the same joy in the anxious person. And at the same time as the anxious person is now kind of starting to push for commitment and connection and bonding, the avoidant person begins to pull away. The anxious person freaks out and panics, believing they're going to be abandoned. They start chasing, and it begins this ugly dynamic of chasing, desperation, fear, withdrawing, running away. It's a horrible cycle that people go through.
And the solution would seem to be the anxious person should hook up with another anxious person, but that won't work.
That almost never happens, because then they just sit there waiting for somebody to give them oxytocin, like a flower waiting to be pollinated.
Those are the situations where somebody goes, I just don't feel it.
No, yeah, it's
he doesn't have anything for me, or she doesn't have anything.
No, it's two bottoms in a relationship. It just doesn't work that way. The real solution is for both of them to sit down and have a conversation about the issues, but their brain says that will never work. No one would ever work with me. No one would ever be peaceful. No one would ever be kind. I can't talk about it, so I have to get my needs met secretly.
And I've watched some of your videos, and you seem to speak mostly about men being avoidant and women being anxious, but I think it can be flipped the other way too.
It can absolutely be flipped the other way. I talk about like that for two reasons. One, in the past, for most of history, we have found that women tend toward anxious attachment and men tend toward avoidant attachment. Some of the research lately is actually suggesting that might be flipping. Women might be more avoidant, men might be more anxious lately, but a lot of the women coming to me are anxious and they want information. Now avoidant men are finally coming to me too, so that's why I do that.
How can somebody tell if they have an avoidant or anxious attachment style?
That's a great question.
Today's video is sponsored by BetterHelp. After my recent loss, I was completely thrown off. I couldn't sleep, my mind was scattered, had a hard time working and focusing, so I started seeing a therapist. And just having a space to talk with someone who helps you see things from a different perspective helps you to feel grounded again. And slowly I started coming back to myself. And that's what therapy gives you, the ability to meet yourself with patience and compassion, especially when things don't go the way you expected. I think therapy is one of the best investments a person can make in themselves. BetterHelp makes starting therapy easier. You just fill out a short questionnaire and get matched with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. And if it's not the right fit, you can switch anytime at no extra cost. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.3 rating on Trustpilot, it's a platform you can trust. Click on the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/soft white underbelly to get 10% off your first month of therapy. Thank you for watching.
First, look at your relationships and say, am I actually fully satisfied in my relationships? Do I feel at peace? Do I feel safe? Do I feel at rest? Do I feel like I can open up about anything and I'm good and the people around me, they've got me? If so, that's more secure attachment. If no, you probably have an attachment issue. Then you stop and ask, do I fear abandonment all the time? I'm anxiously attached. I'm afraid of being abandoned, almost like a child. Or am I more afraid of betrayal and being trapped and controlled? That's more avoidant. Do I feel like to solve a problem, I have to find someone to rescue me? That's anxious. Or do I feel like I have to pull away from other people and solve it myself? That's avoidant. Do I feel in my relationships like I can talk about my emotions with the other person? If so, you might be anxious if you're overwhelmed by it and you really dump on it, or if not at all, you might be more avoidant. And if you say, do I believe I have the ability to move other people with my behaviors and I can make them do what I want them to do? Anxious people will say no, avoidant people will more likely say yes.
In a romantic relationship where you don't have this push and pull or somebody self-sabotaging or something like that going on, it just gets boring, does it not?
In a securely attached relationship, that's what I get. It'll be boring. It'll be terrible. Let me ask you if this feels boring. Imagine you have a partner that when you walk in the door, they're just happy to see you. But they ask you, do you need some space to breathe? You good? Can we spend time together? Where are you at? No, you know what? Give me 5 minutes to decompress. Not a problem. You go, you wash your face, you decompress, you come back, they greet you with a warm hug. They ask how you doing, what you want to do tonight. They have everything planned out, but they have some options. You can lay them out together and talk about it. If you don't feel it, you can tell them, I'm not feeling it right now, and here's where I'm at. And then you can make additional plans for another time. If you are feeling it, great, you do it, right? You spend the rest of the day together and you're never guessing. You're always fulfilled. Now the fun comes from the experiences that you get to share together. Now you have other biochemicals, oxytocin, vasopressin, GABA, serotonin, rich relationships biochemically. That's why you don't get bored. You feel fulfilled. It's a very different experience. You're not looking for a dopamine binge, which is what most people are looking for, of fun, 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 endless stimulation. A relationship should not be endless stimulation. It should be a soothing, warm, fulfilling experience. Very different from a dopamine binge.
Are romantic relationships basically just chemical reactions?
Chemical reactions are an important part of it because we are biochemical creatures and we can't get away from that, but they are also more than that. We have our body, we have our brain, we have our mind. The chemicals are incredibly important because they are changing based on where you're at in your process, but it's not just a chemical experience. It's all of it.
And can you change or repair your attachment style?
Absolutely. 100%.
Really?
People will say you can't, but yes, you can. It does take time to reprogram the pathways of your brain. If you grow up with an avoidant attachment style, your prefrontal cortex will overdevelop and squash your emotional expression and make it harder for you to feel your feelings. But through time and experience, you can grow those areas differently and remap and understand your thinking and your feeling. It takes time and effort, but yes, you can. Secure relationships are necessary to do that, though.
And what kind of childhood does one have to endure to end up as a avoidant or anxious?
Good question. Right now, we know that 65% of Gen Z has attachment issues, and more than that in the next generation, Gen Alpha, have attachment issues. So it's not the horrific nightmare that most people might think. The worst childhoods generally either create disorganized attachment style, the blend of the two, or personality disorders, which are the extreme version of attachment issues that have taken over a person completely. For a person to have attachment issues, you can be in the NICU as an infant and learn that no one will ever care for you or help you in that first 3 weeks of life because you're just scared, crying all the time, hoping someone will come rescue you. You can be in daycare for way too long, way too early. Okay. There can be abuse, sure. There can be a lot of family stress. Your parents can have attachment issues. They might not know how to nurture you, how to regulate you. Back in the 80s and 90s, they had the cry it out method. Leave your child for 6 hours to cry in the crib and eventually they'll leave you alone. That can do it, right? It's consistent though, consistent messaging that when you call for help, no one will help you. When you have emotional hurts, people will make it worse. When you ask for things, people punish you. If it's consistent messaging like that, that grows the attachment issue.
So what's like a typical childhood scenario that will create an anxious person?
That is a good question. We are trying to figure out exactly what causes anxious instead of avoidant. And what we seem to find is that people who felt helpless, truly helpless in childhood, and they reached a point where fight was gone, flight was gone out of their nervous system. So it's fawn instead, a people-pleasing, approval-seeking. And that was their only recourse was please somebody rescue me, I'll be happy and I'll be kind. That seems to lead to the anxious tendency. It's also, like I said, an oxytocin addiction. So you are addicted to the feelings that you have. What I've noticed with most of my clients that I work with, if they're avoidant, they've never had the oxytocin connection. They didn't have that rich, warm bond with their mother or their father. It was tainted because if their mom connected to them, she would then inflict huge emotional stress on him. He was over responsible for her anxieties, so he shut out all of that intimacy. So it does seem to be helplessness and high levels of oxytocin deprivation will seem to lead to avoidant. Okay.
And as far as serotonin and dopamine and
it's really hard to get serotonin when you have attachment issues because you're chronically in your sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight. So you're always on, always ready for something bad to happen. You don't really go into parasympathetic rest and digest mode. Your vagus nerve is tight most of the time. You have breathing challenges. And so what you're not going to do is generate much serotonin, either through sleep, because you're going to have insomnia. Usually that's a problem with attachment issues too. You're going to have chronic insomnia. You're not resting. You're probably going to go to the gym 5 days a week, 2 hours a day, desperately scraping the bottom of the barrel to get some serotonin, but you're not going to get the serotonin-rich experiences in your relationships either because you don't have the attachment issues. So all you can do is compensate with dopamine binging.
See, I love when we start talking about the brain chemistry and the vagus nerve and all these kind of things because it's very clear that we're just biological, chemical creatures.
That's what we
They're
are.
playing out these roles, and we're all, romance is so mysterious to us, but if you boil down the chemistry of it all, it becomes pretty simple.
That's it. Our brain is a learning computer through experiences. So the experiences you have shape your brain, and then it becomes afraid of a lot of things that hurt it. And it doesn't believe that you're going to get the good experiences if you don't teach it that it can. So anxious people never got the experience of how to have love, safety, intimacy, and build it without pleasing somebody. Their brain says, I have to please people. I have to wait to get fed. I have to beg. I have to plead. And I am the problem. No one loves me because of me. That's what their brains learned. So if you can unlearn that and reprogram that, your chemicals can shift, your hormones shift, your fertility shifts, your migraines might disappear, autoimmune disorders diminish. You have greater risks of cancer, heart attack, and stroke if you don't fix it. But when you fix it, you're actually resilient against cancer, heart attack, and stroke. All kinds of things shift when you fix this. Your whole system is meant to live symbiotically with other human beings, and your nervous system is meant to be calmed in their presence. If you don't have that, it's just an open door to every problem you can possibly experience. All the epidemics we have, all the drug epidemics, every addiction can be mapped out to directly attach to attachment issues and come from it. I've never treated a case myself of any kind of addiction that didn't have some attachment issues at its root. You are biochemically resistant to addiction cycles when you have secure attachment, but that's only about 35% of us now.
Is that right?
Yes.
Only 35% are secure.
And that's fairly optimistic because we also see that the rates of personality disorders, for example, are on the rise. And that's the most extreme version of attachment issues. It's gone from 10% of population up to an estimated 15, maybe even as high as 20% of the population, which is an extreme marker. So we might be looking at 20% secure.
And I assume if you're secure and you're partnered up with, let's say, somebody who's avoidant or like severely avoidant, it'll make you seem more anxious.
You will feel, yes.
And vice versa. If you're secure and you're hooked up with somebody who is anxious.
Yes. Most secure people are segregated out and they date each other because they're sending the right signals. I tell people it's like this. If you have a group of two fireflies, one is red. We'll say they're the insecure dating population, right? 65% of fireflies, red fireflies. They see red and they flash red. They cannot see the color blue. Then you have a blue pool of secure fireflies that send secure signals, okay? They see blue, that's it. They don't see red. When those fireflies intermingle like this, they don't even send or see the right signals, so they're invisible to each other. They just assume there's no interest, they ghost, they barely connect, they have one conversation, they never see each other again. That's really mostly how that happens. So the insecure pool segregates out, the secure pool segregates out without even realizing they're doing it. That's generally the issue that's happening for most people. That's why people say, I've never met a secure person in my life. You probably have met many of them. It's just that you guys didn't send the proper signals, so you didn't receive the message.
And you see clients privately, right?
I see clients, and I have a whole coaching team under me that works with clients.
And I assume after you've done this for many years, as you have, you can almost predict what's going to happen in these relationships.
Usually, yes. Very quickly, actually, when I meet somebody.
You can just predict the future.
We humans are very simple things, to be honest with you. We are almost like machines. We break down in predictable ways. We erode in particular ways. We can also repair in particular ways. But it's all a system. That's how we are.
Why does it so often feel like one of the partners is walking on eggshells around the other?
The eggshell effect is usually because we don't trust that other people will work with us during conflict. So then we're afraid of creating conflict accidentally. We'll take the case of a lot of women are afraid they walk on eggshells around maybe a more avoidant man who doesn't have the emotional discipline that makes her feel safe and steady. I can't share my emotions with him because they may upset him and he may leave, or he may explode, or he might blow up, or he might cry. I don't know. So I'm going to never create conflict and make life totally peaceful for him. She doesn't believe that if she brings a difficult feeling to him, that he'll help resolve it with her. The eggshell effect is part of that insecure attachment. And her brain doesn't say, hey, there's men out there who don't make me walk on eggshells. Her brain says, Dad made me walk on eggshells. Mom made me walk on eggshells. I've been walking on eggshells my whole life. This is how relationships work. So she doesn't look for different.
What do you say to someone who feels like they're always the one that's trying harder in the relationship? That's a more anxious person, right?
Yeah, the heavy emotional labor, right? The overperforming. I'll say two things. One is it's not your job. You don't need to overperform. I know that you think you have to, but you don't. That's not how relationships operate. And all you're doing is perpetuating a system where you are always going to be overperforming, because when you meet a secure person and try to overperform in the first 10 minutes, they back away. They don't want that. It's not sustainable. It's not comfortable. They dislike it. So you will only connect to people who love that you overperform for them. When you stop, the people who love it leave, and you can start connecting with people who want you for you, number one. And number two, that's a gentle thing, I'll say. Number two is a little harsher. Overperforming is a form of manipulation. It's a form of trying to give people what they want so that they will guess what you want and then take care of you. It's you being that 1-year-old in the crib, hoping that you will do whatever your mom wanted so she'll pick you up, instead of leaving you in that crib sobbing uncontrollably for 1 more hour. Don't overperform for them. Don't overperform for you. Stop so that you are not manipulating, but also stop so that you can find someone who loves you for who you are.
Interesting. How do you help couples stop keeping score and start working together?
Well, what's interesting is there's a bonding hormone when we work together called vasopressin. Vasopressin is released when we overcome stress, solve challenges, work as a team. Vasopressin is also specifically tied to feelings of monogamy, and especially monogamous satisfaction. So we need to be solving problems together. The way I tell couples to solve their problems is this. You need a larger purpose that you're both trying to create. You need a larger goal. I usually unify the couples I work with around some long-term vision of legacy, of life, of students they're going to mentor, or kids or grandkids, or whatever they're building. They need a deeper purpose. And then they have to work effectively as an executive partnership on making that happen, so that when they then face problems here, they say, what solution here leads to that outcome we both want? Instead of, I'm upset, my feelings are hurt, it's your fault. Then you fall apart. If you have no longer term, deeper purpose, really hard to work as a team, because then it's all just about feelings right now.
What happens when intimacy disappears in a long-term relationship?
Ooh, how long are we talking? When does the intimacy disappear? Because that tells me different things.
2 years, something like that.
Ooh, it disappears at 2 years. So what that tells me is that what happened was the anxious person jumped into the relationship and gave full, complete intimacy at the very beginning, as much as possible, because it felt like incredible validation. And the avoidant person dove into that and soaked it up and loved it and said, it's so great that I get free, complete, total love without any expectations, no label, nothing. I'm safe. No one's wanting anything from me. And the anxious person says, isn't it great that this person needs me in all these cool ways and loves that I'm around? And at about 7 months, the novelty dopamine wears off and the avoidant person starts to pull back. Not completely, but they start to pull back. And the anxious person starting to think about cohabiting, living together, marriage, anything like that. More, right? They start asking for things. I've done enough. I've paid into the system. Can I make a small withdrawal? And at this point, typically, they start arguing. Now, intimacy doesn't completely die. They both keep trying, and usually their hormones will kick in, that testosterone every 72 hours, the ovulation cycle every 28 to 30 days. Those still push, so you still have a bit of intimacy, and that can drag you out to a year. But at a year, they really start bickering because now they're not getting their needs met. They might go for an additional year and still have intimacy and sex, but the second year is usually much less joyful and much less pleasurable. And at the end of 2 years, gone. That's where the relationship feels dead. At that point, they either break up or they just lock in and agree to be miserable together for the next 50 years.
Sounds great.
That's the anxious and avoidant dance. That's why we have to fix it.
Why is sex such a loaded issue for couples with attachment wounds?
Because sex biochemically is different for people with attachment wounds. If you have secure attachment, you build an intimate oxytocin-focused relationship. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone released when we feel safe, loved, and belonging. And when we have sex, we release oxytocin through sex and through orgasms and experiences, and it becomes a shared, joyful experience. So sex, high oxytocin, high serotonin, some dopamine, but it's not the main course. And you feel that it's the culmination of your joy together. So you get to talk about it. You get to increase this part and decrease this part. And let's build a robust sex life that's more and more fulfilling as we go along. When you have attachment issues, sex is a release for the avoidant people. It's dumping water on their nuclear reactor on the inside because their cortisol is unregulated. So the only way to cool it is by throwing constant dopamine binges on top. So it's a release for them. Or it's a performance to try to please their partner and then get what they need. And for the anxious person, it's this incredible validation that someone cares about me. They must really love me. I can perform. I can do everything you want. It is the purest expression of me giving you everything you want. I'm not even in the room. I don't even care about my experience. I'm just happy that you're here. And again, that dies and that dwindles very, very quickly because the needs start to diminish. So instead of a better sex life, that's the best it will ever be at the beginning, and it begins to tank and get worse and worse and worse.
So sex doesn't really repair the relationship. It's the other way around.
No, sex makes the relationship worse because you're biochemically bonding during sex, and it's being ripped apart outside of the bedroom. So it makes it more painful.
Wow. How does resentment and unspoken expectations slowly corrode connection?
This is a tricky one. When you have attachment issues, every expectation is unspoken. Everyone. The only time expectations are stated is when the avoidant person starts losing their dopamine and starts barking expectations at the other person about, you can't limit me, you can't control me, I want this. That's the only time expectations are ever really spoken inside an insecurely attached relationship. So resentment is guaranteed because your needs will never be met. Now, we have resentment when we, number one, don't get our needs met. We start biochemically starving. And number two, we're hurting as a result. And then number three, we think our partner doesn't care. When we think they don't care, we develop anger to make them care. And that's guaranteed in an insecurely attached relationship.
Do all attachment wounds start in childhood, or can they happen later in life too?
They generally nearly always start in childhood, but our brain is a learning computer that's always gathering more data. So we can have a couple things that are a little off in childhood, and we're mostly okay, but we hit later childhood, early teens, and it's really impacted over and over and over with the people we choose. Maybe there's bullying, maybe there's abusive relationships, someone dies, something horrible happens, and we're less resilient to trauma. And now that trauma hits, but it also connects to our relationships, and it makes the attachment issues much worse. This is why unless we fix our attachment issues, you're almost guaranteed to get worse during the course of your life. This is not something that fixes itself.
It's interesting when you'll have somebody a friend who, you'll go out with her, just a friend, and she'll always find a guy in a big crowd who will eventually abuse her the way her past boyfriend did.
Yes,
and repeat that pattern over and over. And she can find that guy one in a million.
Red fireflies. You flash red, they see it, they smell it. It's micro testing. They come up, they test your boundaries, they test how you talk. She looks like this. She actually curls in a little bit differently. Her facial expression is different. The way she laughs is different. The way she talks is different. She has a whole demeanor.
It's almost like a sixth sense.
Completely different, right? It's the pheromone theory on steroids. It's everything about you exudes this sense of, I won't ask you for anything, and I'll give you everything for the first 7 months. And his avoidant brain says, maybe you're the one I've been looking for who will give me these mystical feelings that I sense are there, but I don't know how to get to. He's trying to get to the feeling of secure attachment, but he doesn't know what to do to get there. He wants oxytocin. He wants vasopressin. He wants high GABA to suppress cortisol. He wants a rich serotonin environment. He wants secure connection, but he doesn't believe it exists. So he is simultaneously haunted by this phantom desire and running through as many partners as he possibly can to get there.
Are we just recreating these broken childhood attachments we had?
Over and over and over and over. And then adding them to the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. Because unfortunately, these people tend to have a lot of kids with the wrong people.
And different family structures can create, in one family, you can have avoidant as well as anxious people coming out of the family?
Yeah, you're almost guaranteed to. Most of my clients who come into me, whatever style they have, their siblings are different. Some siblings might have a personality disorder.
Like one family is not going to produce only avoidance.
No, I've never in my work really seen one family of only the same style.
It could also probably be inherited brain chemistry, right?
There's an idea that we could have predispositions towards certain things, yes. And we know in the past, women were more predisposed to anxious, men were more predisposed to avoidant tendencies. We do sometimes see people who tend to resemble each other in personality, tend to resemble each other in attachment. That can be the case, but a lot of it is that conditioning in the brain. Remember that there's no default. Our brain comes out and says, am I in a safe, secure environment where people care, or am I in a not safe, secure environment where everybody's angry and stressed? And then it chooses, based on your experiences, to go secure or go insecure. And of the insecure pathways, it learns which ones are going to be most beneficial to be safe based on what it has learned incorrectly with a toddler's logic, and then lunges in that direction and never goes back unless you intentionally go there later.
Why do some men shut down emotionally when things start getting serious?
They have to. They have to, biochemically. So in their amygdala, the fear center of the brain, intimacy has become equated with danger. Intimacy equals danger inside their amygdala.
For men.
For men. And for women who are avoidantly attached. If they're avoidantly attached, intimacy equals danger. Now, that was learned in childhood, and their brain said, I will never be hurt and frightened and at the mercy of others ever again.
So rather than saying men, you should be maybe saying avoidant.
Avoidant people in general. Yep. Their brain says, I will never be at the mercy of others ever again. So it shuts down, and what it does is says, I live in a painful world where I will always be in pain. I have to be ready to dissociate, turn off my emotions to deal with painful experiences. So it overdevelops the prefrontal cortex, squashes emotional expression, turns down that person's ability to feel negative and positive emotions, joy and pleasure. And then when they reach a relationship, and the person says, hey, we've been dating for about a year. Where is this going? What are we thinking? Do we want to get married? They go, and intimacy equals danger. The amygdala fires off. It goes to the prefrontal cortex, which squashes emotional expression. All that fear overloads the system, goes to the limbic system, fight, flight, fawn, freeze. And the system says, can I get away? And he goes, I I think I just remembered that I left the gas on, and he dives out the window, hotwires a car, and drives to Mexico. And he stays there for 3 weeks until she forgets about commitment. And then he drives home, and he creeps back in with flowers, hoping to give her love and experience so that she'll be happy again. And if she pretends everything's fine, they'll ease back into the relationship for maybe another 3 or 4 months until she brings it up again. That's the structure.
Very, very often people generalize as men are all this way and women are all that way.
No, not the case.
But really it's more like anxious people are this way and avoidants are that way.
That is very correct, yes.
And it happens to be the case that men are mostly avoidant and women are mostly anxious, but there's always exceptions.
Always exceptions, absolutely. And I work with plenty of avoidant women all the time.
Yeah, they're very attractive.
They are certainly very attractive to some types of people,
yeah,
yes.
They're challenging.
Right. They are usually less emotional because they have to be, right? They are more independent. They have a lot of character traits that men tend to romanticize and look at and say, well, wow, you're so put together. You're so thoughtful. You're very feminine. You're very this and this and this and this. But when you try to build with them,
they're not needy.
They're not needy, but then they also don't need you. And in fact, they refuse to need you. And in fact, they refuse to even let you help. And in fact, they refuse to even let you inside. And in fact, they get fearful and angry if you ever take steps toward them to build a long-term, true, connected bond, because they'll run away from that because they're fearful of dependence.
Interesting. And will let's say an anxious person in time in a relationship turn to be more of the avoidant one in the relationship when things get more secure?
Yes, if they get more secure.
I'm not saying they're going to become avoidant, but they'll play that role more than they did.
Oh, I see. I see what you mean. The pathway to fixing anxious is more of it kind of sounds like you're asking?
Yeah, I've been in relationships where I'm not going to get into specifics, but
sure.
I've seen people who are more anxious when it starts.
Oh, yes.
And then he'll turn to be more avoidant as things become more...
You're talking about the trauma cycle, yes. So an anxious person who takes on a lot of pain and suffering in the relationship, their brain begins to build what's called a cortisol association with the other person. I love you in my heart, but my brain has tagged you as an enemy. So I have to fight through my urge to get away from you to try to fawn over you and try to make you love me and approve of me. But I really am resentful and I really don't want to be near you because my brain thinks you're going to hurt me. So it's this endless love, hate of it looks avoidant. It looks like they take on avoidant traits. And that's usually what I hear. In my relationship with this person, we've been together 10 years. I feel like I'm becoming avoidant. Is that possible? Yes, it's a cortisol association with that human being. You won't be avoidant probably with other people.
Do you believe people are more afraid of rejection than they were in the past?
There's an interesting pseudo-diagnosis coming out lately about rejection and being hypersensitive to it. And they're tagging it on to whatever they can, right? They're tagging it on especially to ADHD right now. And what we have found is that people with attachment issues are excessively sensitive to feeling rejected, avoidant, anxious, and disorganized. It's an overwhelming experience to be rejected if you have never felt connected or loved by somebody in your entire life. Yes, people are more sensitive to rejection now, but we're miscategorizing it as a mental disorder or a neurological issue. It's a relational issue.
And with things like pornography, men don't really have to take the risk of being rejected.
True. They're also not getting the validation of it. There's a tremendous number of risks with pornography.
What do you think of pornography?
I think it's one of the most destructive things that we have. It gives you a dopamine experience of about 20 times anything else. So you can't even compete with it in nature. So it's a heavily addictive drug.
Yeah.
You may as well be doing heroin as much as using pornography, the way that it impacts your brain to that extent. I think cocaine gives you 3 times dopamine. Pornography gives you 20 times dopamine. So it's excessively, destructively addictive. And what it does is give you a false sense of relief and a false sense of release. Very few men say, I don't need a girlfriend because I have porn, but pornography is contributing to them just endlessly binging it and then just sitting there one more day, just numbing themselves with pornography, video games, alcohol, sugary drinks, anything they can.
Yeah, I don't see it getting any better. And you look how robust the porn industry is. It's clear that it's being used by a lot of people.
It is, and it certainly is. And I'm not here to demonize anyone who uses it. I think that we have to understand what it's doing to us biochemically. And it's a part of a larger picture of everything that's happening to us. A person who's securely attached, dopamine is maybe this much of their life experience. Dopamine is the salt you add to your food. If you have insecure attachment, dopamine is the main course. Dopamine is so much of what you're craving. And if you're anxiously attached, oxytocin's right there with it. But it's all that you're eating. It's like eating a bowl of sugar over and over and over and over. You don't do that when you're trained to eat healthy food.
Is masculinity in crisis today when it comes to romance?
Masculinity was in crisis 60, 70 years ago, and then it died. And it has begun emerging from an infantile state. We've reached juvenile state in the last, let's say, 15 years. And so you see swaggering caricatures of masculinity trying desperately to emerge from women's shadow right now. Masculinity, I think, is at a crisis of, well, I would actually say masculinity is really at a rite of passage. Masculinity as a whole is at a rite of passage. We are trying to emerge into a mature version of masculinity again. That's really where we're at. We have to grow forward from here and overcome our fears, overcome our anger, overcome our emotions, and we have to be disciplined men ready to love and lead and protect so that we can care for people around us without collapsing into our emotions. I think that's where we're at. Less of a crisis, more of a rite of passage happening across the whole world.
Interesting. How does the pressure to be the provider or to be independent affect how men and women show up in relationships?
Explosively. We know that most men are not able to provide for a family anymore here in America. We know that that's dwindling. That ability is just almost gone.
Women are making more money than men.
Women are making more money than men, for certain. That is a problem for some of my clients. Not just because the woman has more money. That's almost never actually a problem for the clients I work with, but men don't believe they give anything else except money. And then they collapse into that and that obsession and fear because they feel worthless and emasculated because they don't know what else a man can give. Women, on the other hand, want everything else that a man can bring, and they aren't really looking for the money aspect, most of them. A few of them, but most of them are not. They're looking for other connections of safety and love and protection. And
what do you think women are looking for in a guy?
What are women looking for?
Yeah.
4 levels of safety. 4 levels of safety that men are supposed to provide. First is physical safety. This is pretty normal, right? Our hunter-gatherer ancestors.
Yeah, we're bigger than there.
We're bigger. Would you protect me if something painful happened?
But danger is not really that imminent in our society anyway.
Depends where you live, but sure.
You have DoorDash. You don't have to even go out of your house.
Typically true, but there's a lot more dangers than people would think nowadays. But yes, it's less of a priority. Resource safety, though, is level 2. Resource safety does not mean paying the bills. Resource safety means if something goes wrong, would you go do something about it? Would you go get resources? If the world ends tomorrow, you're going to feed me and feed my kids. Are you going to provide other resources for us or relationships or whatever it may be? Resource safety, not just paying bills today. This is pretty common. This is okay. Couples can pass this, but without secure attachment, you can't add level 3, emotional safety. If I bring my emotions to you, to process with you, to work with you, to solve problems with you, can you handle my emotions without collapsing or running away? And are you emotionally disciplined enough to handle your own emotions so I can trust you not to run away screaming or crying? At level 3, emotional safety, this is where the eggshells stop, the performing stops, all those problems that you're looking at stop, and she can ease into the relationship and relax, which brings level 4, bonding safety. Are you truly bonded to me? Are you faithful? Are you loyal? Do you have control over your sexual needs so you're not just diving into the next woman you find? Do you actually care for me as a human being? Can you open up to me? Can you let me fully connect to you? Are you giving signs of oxytocin and vasopressin bonding with me and being securely attached? 4 levels of safety. That's what women are looking for. And a mature masculine man is the only one who can provide emotional safety and bonding safety. Nobody else can.
And those are becoming more rare, right?
Excessively more rare. Very, very rare.
Most people are lonely in our society today?
Yeah. The research says that of millennial groups, 2/3 of them are lonely every single day, and 35% of them are so crushingly lonely every single day that they experience significant depression symptoms as a result. So yes, very lonely.
Who's hurting more, men or women, you think?
I saw some great research on this the other day, actually. We hurt at different phases of our life differently. Okay. Men typically are lonely in the middle of their life, where they're working a lot. They're mostly just around coworkers that they don't even like and don't trust. And they're away from the home. They're working. They have fewer and fewer friends. So it's just a solitary life of work. It's almost like being a monk. They might see their family on the weekends, but they have dwindling connections there. At the end of their life, they are more likely to have a wife or a partner or die. So at the end of their life, if you survive long enough, which is not good odds when you have attachment issues. It lowers your life expectancy by about 15 years and lowers life quality the whole time. Then you'll be less lonely than women at that point. Really. Women are less lonely most of their entire life until they hit about 55, 60, and then suddenly their loneliness rates skyrocket and surpass men. For the rest of their life, from 55, 60, anywhere until 70, 80, 90, they are crushingly lonely because one, men are dead, and two, they're having fewer and fewer children to talk with. And if they do have children, the bonds are eroded, so they're not spending time with them. And their friendships have diminished over the last 60, 70 years as well. So all of the connections that would have kept women deeply engaged and connected if their husband died are gone. 65 and up is where women are more lonely than men. The rest of it, men are more lonely.
Has dating become more transactional than it used to be in the old days?
In the old days. Define the old days.
Before social media.
Before social media. So dating as a concept was invented in the 1920s. Prior to that was mostly courtship. It was expected that you would get together, you had proper intentions, you were going to be honest if you wanted to get married, and if you didn't, you were honest about that. You'd get together, you'd build a life, you'd have kids. It was not idyllic, it's not utopian, it's not perfect, but that was the expectation, and your family gave you the skills to do it. They supported you. If it didn't go well, they'd work with you. Again, not perfect. I don't want to romanticize it, but healthier, more structured, more predictable. In the 1920s and the 1910s, a lot of that shattered and those family bonds exploded. And we started building these things called the car, right? Which by the time it got to the boomers became the mobile sex wagon. And that was how they started doing that. So dating grew and grew and grew out of the erosion of family connection, the destruction of culture, the destruction of proper bonding, kith and kin networks dying, courtship being gone. Now you had nobody to connect to. So you had to find a stranger somewhere and hope that they were going to be the right match. So we see the boomers right now coming out of that first real iteration of real dating. They're exploding the divorce rates in their 70s and 80s. They're calling it the gray divorce, right? They're tripling the divorce rates, even currently those of them who are still alive right now as we speak. So that's led to an erosion through the years of dating, which is now dopamine, just dopamine. So is it transactional? It's the people who are dating are in it to exchange biochemicals. The people who are securely attached usually do courtship model, and they get connected through their local network, and they get people match made to them through their family and friend networks, or they pair up with someone they meet in proximity and connect and do the bonding with and filter through their network. And then they get married and they're out of the dating pool. So yes, it's become biochemically transactional, even if we're not exactly saying it.
And the healthiest, most secure people in society are usually partnered up by their mid-20s, late 20s, and the rest of us are a bunch of misfits.
They're partnered up, they're having babies, they are biochemically sound, they're financially sound, they're more structured than everybody else, they have a great segregated community that helps each other, they're booming, they're prospering, and we never hear from them because they don't bother using social media, and they don't go online talking about how great their life is. They just sit around with their family and friends and enjoy it. So they're invisible to the rest of us who are out here like, wow, life sucks. It's terrible. Everyone hates each other. What's happening? The world is over as we know it. No, it's because this is the segregated pool where everything is awful.
What are the biggest changes you've seen from social media?
I love social media, I will say. It allows me to reach a lot of people. I have 1 million followers across platforms, and I love helping people. My biggest platform is TikTok, of all places. People on TikTok are starving for this information. So I know that the young people get a lot of bad rap about awful things that are happening. I think that social media is a tool we can use carefully and smartly, or it is a destructive force that can eat you alive. And that's probably the biggest change I've seen, is people using social media in the most destructive ways to say the most unfiltered thoughts and hurt each other in a completely non-empathetic, almost sociopathic kind of way, and then destroy themselves with consumption. It's one or the other.
How do big cities and more rural areas compare in terms of relationships?
I would love to say that rural areas are perfect and wonderful and that everybody loves each other and they all get together at special bonfires.
They're just as fucked up.
They are increasingly destroyed because economic factors are putting a tremendous amount of pressure on them. We're seeing a lot of brokenness there. We're seeing a lot of destruction, the destruction of family farms, the destruction of family businesses. Everything is falling apart there too. We do know that people that live in communities where everybody is actually connected and accountable to each other tend to do better because you can't hide the level of secrets you can hide in a big city and then destroy yourself eventually. So there's a slight edge there. But what I will say is wherever you live, if you are actually connected to your community, you're going to be healthier.
And back to social media, has that affected the way like people's sense of being good enough to attract a partner and things like that?
It has taken people who don't feel good enough and convinced them they're not good enough, and then given them means of becoming better to get more likes. And it has even cell phones, right? It has changed our experience. So in the old days, right, when you and I were younger, we'd hang out with our friends, we'd talk, we'd laugh, we'd have a great experience. We'd be releasing oxytocin and serotonin. Those are the primary chemicals we'd be releasing during our time with our friends. Now, kids sit in their room on their phones, and we have research showing this, and they get pings on their phone. So the experience they're having is a dopamine experience. So we have turned the human experience from serotonin into dopamine. It is endless sugar pleasure instead of a rich, fulfilling bonding experience. That's what we know.
What do you think of dating apps? I know nothing about them, but they seem to be a terrible way to meet.
Dating apps are a network of people who don't have anyone in their life that can connect them to anyone they know, so they are desperate and alone and afraid. And then they have attachment issues. Then they go on the app and they try to market themselves like a product on Amazon for impulse buys. So they misuse the app and they're already afraid and desperate in the first place. So it's a hunting ground for people with attachment issues or personality disorders to find somebody to give them the chemicals they're looking for. You can use dating apps more responsibly. They're meant to be used more with a filter. You're supposed to market to your target audience for what you actually want, but most people are faking what they want to please everyone to hope one person accepts them. We're misusing the dating apps.
And the generational differences between like Gen Z and boomers and things like that, what are the differences?
Oh, that's a big kettle of fish. What's the first one off your mind? I'll tell you.
Oh, you pick it, whatever you think.
So the boomers grew up with a family structure of the greatest generation, the silent generation, who believed that suffering for your family was the greatest thing you could do. But many of them had excessive trauma, so they told their boomer kids how much they suffered for them and then got angry when their boomer kids didn't return the affection and an appropriate gratitude, right? So the boomers, about half of them got it and said, okay, you love me, but you're messed up. So I'm going to do my best and try to take care of other people too, right? I got this. They built mostly secure attachment. We see at about a 50% rate. Half of boomers didn't get it and said, I hate you. I hate family. Everything's terrible. No one will ever control me like this again, and screw you and screw family. So they went out and they connected and started building marriages, destroyed them, had Gen Z and Gen X, or Gen X and Gen Y along the way, had these kids that didn't know what to do. They're like deer in the headlights and yelled at their kids like, you're not doing enough. You should be out there having fun. Why didn't you have sex with somebody this weekend? Like they told them to be crazy and over liberal. And then they went and said, that was awful. I'm going to have my second marriage, and then I will build children who are exactly like me. And so they built the millennial generation, which hates them. And the millennials we see are at about a 40% insecure attachment rate, with about 40% secure, I should say, with 60% insecure. And they're falling apart, and they hate the boomers, and they're at war. And then the millennials went forward and had Gen Z. And Gen Z has never seen a functioning family system, ever. They've never seen one. Millennials got the message that family's everything. You should serve me, but family doesn't give you anything. Gen X and Gen Y got the message of, well, everything falls apart, love is worthless, and just do what you want and have fun. And the boomers got the message of, you can do anything you want and there are no consequences. If anyone doesn't like it, punch them in the face and take their stuff. That's what the boomers got. So it's this endless generational war of broken attachment, that nobody knows how to talk to each other. The boomers are just as much victims as Gen Z, Gen Alpha, everybody coming now. It's just that family has eroded for 110 years. We don't know what to do anymore. That's why I have to teach people about attachment now, because I'm bringing common sense things that our ancestors did. I'm not inventing this. It's common sense. It's what our ancestors have done for tens of thousands, millions of years. But nobody does it anymore. So we have to learn it manually.
Back to attachment styles. What's the first thing someone should do if they recognize their attachment style is hurting their relationship? Like an avoidant is just being too difficult, or an anxious person is just too clingy.
Yep.
For example.
Absolutely. So a lot of people listening to this are probably saying, oh, shoot, I have attachment issues. Oh, good. One more diagnosis. What's the pill for it? For anyone who finds that they have attachment issues right now, I had attachment issues when I was growing up. That's what started me down this path.
I think we all do, don't we?
65% now, baby. Yeah, it's a lot.
Almost all of us.
It's almost all of us. So it is something you can overcome. But if you need first steps, here's what I recommend. Number one, sit down and find any place where you are, write down any place where you are guessing in your relationships, any place that you are uncertain, any place that you are afraid, any place where you're confused. Write down all the question marks and gaps that you have, whether you're anxious, avoidant, disorganized, whatever. Write down the gaps and then figure out the conversations you would have to have with each person to fill those gaps so that you have no more confusion, no more uncertainty, no more questions. You have clarity, you have peace of mind. That will give your nervous system safety. If you have a difficult time figuring out what to say, how to articulate those conversations, or if you have a hard time believing it's possible to have those conversations, or if your nervous system freaks out so bad you have a panic attack when you think about having those conversations, those are the three places where attachment is sabotaging you. So that's where we probably need to do some skill training or some practice to be able to get to a place where we can have those conversations. Once you do, either the other people are going to say, okay, we can do this, and you build a secure relationship. Even if neither person's secure yet, you can build a secure relationship which then corrects each of you through experience. So you can become secure together. Or they will say, I hate this. This is terrible. How dare you ask me clarifying questions? And they leave. And then you have lost a relationship that was damaging you in the first place.
And therapy and coaching is effective in this?
Therapy, not.
Self-awareness, probably.
Unfortunately, a lot of therapy nowadays, we're churning out therapists at an unprecedented rate because we don't have enough helpers, so they're just cramming them through as fast as they can. A lot of states have essentially deputized social workers and given them therapist licenses to practice therapy just to try to plug the gaps, and so a lot of therapists are not trained appropriately. We also don't teach attachment theory to the majority of therapists. What we teach them is that you have a chemical imbalance, or we don't know what causes mental disorders, but you have to talk a lot and just talk about your feelings and think about thinking and just sit there and talk about it and process it. Now, some therapists are incredible. I was a therapist for many years. I have a lot of good colleagues, but by and large, the therapy industry is failing America. I had a client just the other day who came in and said, Adam, I've been in therapy for 20 years, every single week. And we did the math. $100 copay every single week, really high deductible. That's $5,000 a year. That's $100,000 over 20 years. $100,000 to not feel better. Therapy is not meant to be what it is. Therapy is meant to come in, have a diagnosis, solve the diagnosis, get out. You're supposed to have family and friends that you process with. You're supposed to have confidant, mentor, coach, guide, pastor, priest, aunt, uncle, grandparents. You're supposed to have those people to talk to. And now what you have is an expensive subscription friend who's going to listen to you for 20 years and collect $100,000 from you. Therapy is not meant to work that way. So generally, I shift people to coaching, where you can learn specific skill sets that give you better experiences that reprogram your brain and change your bonding chemicals, and then you can build better relationships on purpose. Coaching is what I say is the solution.
And can couples outgrow their attachment wounds together, or does one person have to lead?
No, couples can absolutely outgrow their attachment issues together if they are both willing to do the work. The majority of couples who come to me, they are both willing, they do it. Even if one is hesitant, I talk to them. Usually the avoidant person's like, I don't know, that sounds kind of weird. Why would I want more feelings in my life? Why would I take care of her feelings? Why would I take care of his feelings if she's avoidant? Why would I have these conversations? That sounds scary. That sounds frightening. This is hard for me. I don't like this. This is painful. Right? They everything in them is saying run. Their amygdala is overactive and screaming at them that I'm going to get them killed. Is basically what it is. It takes an immense amount of trust, and usually they respond to the science pretty well, to understand that there is another way of living and then to begin slowly experiencing that. Once they do, everything changes. The anxious person's usually the easy one. They just say, oh, thank God it's not my fault. Tell me anything and I'll do it. And that's generally the process.
And do you see like really productive improvement?
I have a 99.8% success rate with clients I work with. Wherever they come in, if they work with me, 99.8% success rate, turning them from insecure couples into secure couples.
Really?
Yes. Years and years and years following them afterward, they're happier and happier as the years go by.
Wow.
When we fix attachment, everything else is fixed.
That's impressive. What do you think of marriage today?
I think it's wonderful, but I think nobody knows what it's for.
What is marriage for?
Marriage is a business. Marriage is really a business of crafting a shared legacy together that you are both generating. That's what marriage is. You are co-founding a business that doesn't make profit. It's actually a loss, generally speaking, financially, but it's children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, or it's supporting a cause, growing a legacy, teaching students, changing the world in some fashion. You join together as a couple and work toward that shared legacy. That's what marriage is supposed to be for. It's not supposed to be for fun, sex, romance, happiness. Those things are added to it because they're added benefits, but marriage is about business.
Interesting. Is marriage still the gold standard for connection?
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
It's becoming a little outdated. Is that the word?
People tell me that.
Yeah.
I've been married for 17 years, and I will say that marriage done well is more relevant than it's ever been. But marriage based on feelings? No. Marriage where one or both of you is not actually speaking correctly and openly to the person? No. Marriage that is not any larger purpose at all, it's just let's sit here and essentially emotionally masturbate for the rest of our lives? No. Marriages where you are running away from reality? Absolutely not. Marriages where you have no life purpose whatsoever. You're just here to sort of look at the wall and watch the paint dry? No. If you have a deeper purpose and a deeper legacy, building it together with someone, that's what marriage is for. I think marriage is more relevant than ever, but we're going to have to redefine it because the boomers really destroyed it.
Is that because we were selfish?
Good question. I think it's honestly because we don't know that connection and legacy and meaning are possible, right? A lot of young men today, they can barely make ends meet. They can't even afford a studio apartment. They're paying, if you go to San Francisco, they're paying $1,000 a week just to live in somebody's pantry in a studio apartment somewhere, right? They're sleeping next to the ramen pile. If we strip people of the ability to have meaning and purpose, then yes, it's hard. Are we selfish? I think we're all wired for meaning and joy and pleasure. So if you want to say that having fulfillment, satisfaction, and pleasure is selfish, we can say that. But I think that those things can either be taking from others, it can either be removing from other people so that it's a zero-sum game, or it can be a multiplier effect that we share with other people. In my marriage, is it selfish? Sure. We're both fulfilled. We both feel like we're living our life purpose. We're both joyful, but it's a multiplier effect where one of our satisfaction increases the other person's satisfaction. Good, secure relationships should multiply. It's not a zero-sum game of who gets what.
It just seems like there's so many options now. Like maybe, 50 years ago, there were the 7 women in your small town to possibly marry and settle down with the rest of your life. Sure. Now you go on Instagram, and it's mind-blowing the number of options that are out there.
Sure. We find that people actually are less happy than ever because there's so many options, actually. I will say this, that marriage evolved in pretty much almost every single culture that's ever existed on the face of the earth. And I don't think our ancestors were stupid. I think they knew what they were doing. I just think that we have badly misused marriage the same way we have badly misused everything else. Every plant that we have, every medicine we have, every drink that we have, we badly misuse, and then we say, oh, this is evil. No, it can be very, very, very good when we use it right, but it can destroy us when we abuse it.
Humans tend to destroy things, don't we?
When we are out of balance with our community and our environment, yes, we are not meant to be reduced to solo individuals. We are actually collectivist beings who are meant to operate within a hunter-gatherer group of anywhere from 15 to 30 people, and then have an average of 4 different hunter-gatherer clusters around us for a total of 150. This gives us Dunbar's number that the human brain is only capable of caring about around 150 people. Beyond that, we are not really capable of caring and having empathy beyond 150. We can't even process it. We need that core cluster of 30 and then an expanded cluster of 120.
Super interesting. What happens to a society when deep attachment bonds are missing?
It collapses. Our system is keeping us alive because the machines are running. We don't even realize how most of the machines are built. So the people who built the machines and systems right now are dead, and we don't know how to fix them. So once they grind down, we're done. But our systems are currently running and keeping us happy. And there's plenty of pornography and fast food and alcohol and everything for everyone right now, but it's not sustainable. So our system will face what every system does when attachment collapses, which is a complete destruction of the actual fabric of the society that's being held together, and then balkanization, where smaller groups begin to pop up, tribalist roots come back, and people reform family tribal bonds and build new clusters. The best example of this is the city of Rome, actually. The city of Rome was a whole bunch of men from all the surrounding areas who were outcasts and had attachment issues, and they all gathered together in this little village, and they began building a civilization of attachment-challenged men who bonded together and built connection. Then they went out and found the not great means, female partners, and brought them in, and then built a civilization, which then grew to the Rome that we now understand. So attachment issues are a natural part of us for catastrophes that destroy us to begin rebuilding in the rubble. We are living in the rubble of a better civilization than we are currently in. We live in ruins. It just doesn't look like ruins because our machines are churning along right now. But eventually it will catch up with us, and we will balkanize.
What's the most surprising thing you've learned in your work with romantic relationships and couples?
That there is always hope. Always. The only time there's not hope is when one person chooses to walk away. If both people are even the smallest amount willing to just have a conversation, to just listen, to just make the smallest change, the smallest willingness, that couple can sit, they can have the hard talks, they can begin to scrape their pathway back to secure attachment, and they can build a secure relationship. There is always hope, as long as they're both willing.
You've seen couples heal completely against all kinds of tough odds?
Tremendous. The most crazy affairs you can imagine. If I told you some of the affairs I've helped couples come back from, these walls would break.
Tell me a story. What does that look like?
Oh, my goodness. I've had clients that one of them was flying away to other countries for sex parties because they were excessively avoidant. And only at the last moment did they finally realize what they actually wanted as the partner discovered it. And then the partner was broken and uncontrolled sobbing and betrayals. And it took that person years to build back from that. But once they did, they completely, essentially almost had a religious, not quite, but almost a religious conversion experience from how they were living to how they were going to live going forward. And what that allowed the partner to do was, watching that and that openness, their brain did what we call differentiated. It differentiated in their brain file, old person, new person. So their brain was able to build trust with the new person because the transformation was so pronounced that they could actually form trust with the new partner because of the outward show of behaviors, of sharing, of talking, not only with them, but with everyone in their life. It was a full, complete transformation. That's a miracle.
It's nice to hear.
Yeah, it's always possible.
What advice would you give to someone who feels unlovable or has lost their confidence?
I have never, ever, ever in my life seen a baby and said, wow, this baby doesn't deserve love, right? Never. But all of us, if we have that belief that we don't deserve love, it comes from when we were this small, when we were a tiny little baby. That's where we learned we don't deserve love.
I mean, those first weeks of life.
Weeks, everything.
It's crazy how the first 3 weeks, like as you mentioned earlier, are formative.
It's incredible. And everything that happens to us since then just confirms that bias that it's our fault. So if you believe every baby deserves love, then you as an adult still deserve love. Now the question is, do you deserve respect? You deserve dignity, but respect has to be earned. If you don't respect yourself, you need to sit down and figure out your core ethics, what is right and wrong, and why you are violating it to please other people. And you need to figure out your greater life's purpose, your mission, your target, your goals, whatever they are, and why you're violating them to please other people who don't even like you. And then start making decisions in line with your ethics and principles and in line with your goals. And you will begin respecting yourself. And then you will be worthy of respect. And then good people will find you and respect you and love you. And when we receive love from other people first, then we start to believe that we deserve love because we respect them and they love us. So we trust them. And then we begin to love ourselves. We cannot love ourselves until someone else loves us first.
If you could design the perfect conditions for a healthy relationship, what would that look like?
They would have a meeting every single week to talk about how they feel in the relationship on a scale of 1 to 10, knowing that 7 out of 10 is what your nervous system is happiest at. 8 out of 10 is an incredible, romantic, loving day together, right? 9 and 10 out of 10 is more like almost manic levels of insanity and overabundant joy. I've won the lottery and we're having our wedding and we just have a new great baby and it's excessive. 7 out of 10 is what your nervous system wants. So you should be aiming for 7 out of 10 and 8 out of 10 together as a couple. Weekly meetings about how you're doing, the same way you would at a business. Run your marriage like a business. Other options, right? I teach what's called the CEO and COO model. Typically, men feel best in a CEO role in their family. Women tend to feel best in a COO role, Chief Operations Officer, in their family. About 95 to 97% of couples fall into these two roles and are content there as long as they have a trustworthy co-executive to work with and build their family as co-executives together. It is gender roles, but not based on value or who's better, who's smarter. It's gender roles based on division of labor and division of specializations. CEO, COO, co-executives.
And so fighting in a relationship that's otherwise a healthy relationship is normal, or is that something that should not be happening?
Every couple's going to fight, but it shouldn't happen. A fight is a breakdown of cooperation. When you go into a conflict, there's two questions that your brain asks. Can we work together to solve this? And if not, if there's a hitch, do we have to fight about it, or can we still find a solution? If you have attachment issues, you will assume that there's no hope. So you either try to please people so they'll give you a better deal, or you take from people, or you run away. Fighting is not normal, and it shouldn't be expected to be normal. It is always a breakdown. Secure couples will barely ever fight because they try to cooperate as a default all the time, and they know that cooperation is best. Insecurely attached couples don't believe cooperation's possible, so they end up fighting about pretty much everything.
What would you hope people would take away from your work? Not just about relationships, but about being human.
The thing I hope people will take away from the work more than anything else is that it's not your fault if you feel alone. It's not your fault if you feel unhappy. It's not your fault that you feel like no one can love you. It's not your fault if you feel like there's nothing out there for you. That's not your fault. It's not any baby's fault. It's not any toddler's fault. It's not a child's fault. And it's not your fault because you've never known what to do or how to do it. It's not your fault. But it also can get better. And for it to get better, you will have to make some choices, and they will be hard. They don't have to be painful, but they will be hard because you'll be fighting your own nervous system. But on the other side of that is a lot of safety, a lot of peace, and all the fulfillment you've always wanted. Not with everybody, not a utopia, but with the right people, building love and safety and connection where you can just relax with the people you care about. You can know that you are loved. When you enter into stress or pain, people will be there to talk with you, to solution find with you, to solve with you, to build with you. You will never be alone again, because we humans are not meant to be alone, and we don't want to be alone. And you don't have to be alone. And there are solutions. You just need to find them.
Fascinating talk, Adam.
Thank you.
Adam Lane Smith, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on relationships. We'll maybe do this again one day.
That would be delightful.
You're incredible. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
When I was designing the first Soft-White Underbelly book, I realized that there were so many great portraits that weren't going to make it into that book. They just wouldn't fit. And once I saw how well that first book sold, I knew I'd have to design a second book. This second book is finally ready to ship. Like the first one, this book has a collection of some of the best portraits from Soft-White Underbelly, accompanied by a quote from that person's interview. This book features another group of Rebecca portraits, as well as a collection of color images of the Whitaker family, and plenty of others. You can order yours for $125 or $150 for a signed copy at softwhiteunderbelly.org. Again, like the first book, once this book is sold out, I will not be printing more of them. The portraits are what Soft-White Underbelly is all about, and these two books contain the best of all that work. Thank you for watching.